Associate Justices and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the State of Louisiana. Oh yay, oh yay, oh yes. The Honorable Supreme Court of the State of Louisiana is now in session. Order in silence and command the law. God save this state and this honorable court. Please be seated.
Madam, I presume you rise because you have a motion?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Chief Justice and Associate Justices. For the record, I am Jacqueline Weimer Sanchez. I respectfully move that the sole matter for this session of court be the investiture ceremony of the 26th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the State of Louisiana.
And is so ordered.
Thank you, Your Honor.
For those who follow the court carefully, they will note that the introduction of the justices by the clerk has been slightly modified. Historically, the newest member of the court holds the door for the justices and the chief justices who go first. However, given the gender of our newest colleague and the fact that the balance of us were taught by our wives and our daughters, who goes first? I am the one who held the door today. So after being on this court for 20 years, I'm back to where I started. Tradition today yielded to courtesy. Mr. Barnett, are you ready to present?
Thank you very much. I am Dan Bornet. I'm a deacon in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And Justice Weimer asked that I share a couple of things about myself as I'll be emceeing this program today. For over 40 years, I worked in the petrochemical industry and now do most of the work in my life as a deacon. I had a political life long before the others, in that I worked for a state senator, a congressman, 3 United States senators, and a governor. And I have to say it's especially comfortable to be standing with the justices at my back rather than standing with my facing them, okay? John Weimer is my first cousin, so I have to declare that right up front. It would be very difficult to get anyone to MC this investiture who does not have a close relationship with the justice. I paid for my own gas to get here. He wanted you to know that that was the case because he is frugal. Some people might even call him cheap, but we know better. I believe that he and Penny are related to virtually everyone in his district, and beyond that, if just one counts, third, fourth, and fifth cousins, probably beyond his district as well. My then fiancée, now wife of 51 years, Lizette, taught at junior high school where the justice attended, and my mother-in-law had the justice in an English class. She taught at Nichols. Attorney John Perry's wife, Fran, and the justice go back, way back. As student body president at Nichols, he escorted her as homecoming queen. She is the godmother to one of the justice's nephews. And the justice's sister-in-law, Belinda, is the godmother to one of the Perry children. The godparents of attorney Donna Frisch, president of the Louisiana Historical Society, are the cousins of the justice's wife. I want to assure you that our family tree is not a tree, it is a bush. Justice Weimer believes that developing good relationships with others, whether they be blood relationships or others, is very important to the judiciary of our state. The third of the 3 branches, all branches of government being dedicated to the same responsibility, that is to be of service to the people of our state. Our invocation will be offered today by Bishop Shelton Fobb. But first, a couple of words about Bishop Fobb. He is a native of New Roads in Pointe Coupee Parish. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1989. In 2006, Pope Benedict appointed him as the auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. And in 2013, Pope Francis appointed him as Bishop of Houma-Thibodaux. But every 7 years, Bishop Fobb gets a call from the Holy See. Bishop, if you're happy in Thibodaux, I recommend you don't answer that next call, okay? He and John Weimer have been friends for years. They pray for each other. They are related because they are both children of God. Let's welcome for our invocation this morning, Bishop Shelton Fobb of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux.
Thank you. It's my honor and privilege to be here this afternoon to offer this invocation. So we pray. Almighty and eternal God, you have revealed your glory to all nations. God of power and might, God of wisdom and justice. Through your authority, all is rightly administered, laws are enacted, and justice is decreed. We pray for John L. Weimer, the newly appointed Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court, whose investiture we celebrate during this gathering. May you, O God of all nations, endow Chief Justice Weimer with the wisdom to direct the administration of justice impartially and with the intent of promoting the common good for all. Through the deliberations of the Louisiana Supreme Court, may the blessings of liberty and equality continue to abound in our state. May Chief Justice Weimer and his colleagues be enabled by your powerful protection to discharge their duties with honesty, with wisdom, and with prudence. We likewise commend to your unbounded mercy all citizens of the state of Louisiana, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your holy law. May we be preserved in union and in that peace which the world cannot give, and after enjoying the blessings of this life, be admitted to those blessings which are eternal. We pray to you, who are our God, living and true, now and ever and forever. Amen.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Several first responders will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Since 1995, Greg Champagne has served his home parish of St. Charles as sheriff. He is an attorney and also a former president of the National Sheriff's Association, who married a lovely young lady from Thibodaux, Alice Landry. Both were schoolmates of Justice at Nichols. A native and lifelong resident of St. John the Baptist Parish, Sheriff Mike Trigg began his law enforcement 33 years ago and was elected and has served as sheriff since 2011. He is married to Tanya Stevens. And born and raised in St. Bernard Parish, Sheriff James Pullman is entering his 13th year as sheriff after being elected without opposition. He has been with the sheriff's office for 37 years. Sheriff Pullman and his wife Monique reside in Moreau. In joining the sheriffs and representing firemen and other first responders is Thibodaux attorney Christopher Riviere, honorary chief for life and former grand marshal of the Thibodaux Volunteer Fire Department. It is the largest all-volunteer fire department in the world. Over 500 volunteer firemen, most of whom, like Chris, can trace participation in the fire department's work back multiple generations. He is married to Brenda Guidry. Our Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our national anthem will be performed by a world-renowned chef, an acclaimed and much-honored actor. He's played Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof 8 times. He is a professor at Nicholls State University's Culinary Institute, named for John Fulce. He is a college classmate of the Justice who married him. And when I say married him, I mean, of course, he officiated at Randy Cherami's wedding. Randy Cherami for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Thank you, Randy Cherami. I want to formally welcome all of you who are watching on Louisiana Public Broadcasting throughout the state, those of you who are watching via live stream. This is a very historic day in Louisiana history because since 1920, Louisiana has had 25 gubernatorial swearings in, but only 12 Supreme Court Chief Justice swearings in. And so a historic day, and lots of people are watching. When I told someone that I was going to introduce the most famous person ever to come out of ABOURT, they said, "You mean Devontae Smith is going to be at the investiture?" I said, "No, but a former quarterback for ABOURT High School who would have loved to have thrown passes to Devontae Smith is going to be here." And Governor, it was on January 13th of 2020, I had the privilege of introducing you at your second inaugural. And later that night, we had the privilege of ruling the football world as we won the national championship. From that point on, though, 2020 has turned our lives upside down. And on behalf of every Louisianian, Governor, I want to thank you for leading us through this pandemic and through these difficult times of hurricanes with courage, with clarity, with confidence, with compassion, and with great credibility. Let's welcome the Governor of the state of Louisiana, the Honorable John Bell Edwards.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Chief Justice, Associate Justices, may it please the court, and good afternoon to everyone. I do want to start by thanking the Thibodaux Volunteer Fire Department for being here today to honor one of their own who is being sworn in as Chief Justice. I also want to tell Dan that I was a quarterback precisely because we never threw the ball. But it's kind of like watching an Army game. As we enter this new year, which I believe will be better in many, many ways than 2020, I do want to say that I'm very pleased to be invited here to speak at this investiture ceremony. I want to thank the Chief Justice, John Weimer, for the invitation, but also Penny and the family for all that you have done for many years to sacrifice while he has served the public so well. I also want to thank Chief Justice Johnson for her many years of public service to the people of Louisiana. I was outside in, I think it was 2013, at her investiture ceremony. And obviously her service as Chief Justice was historic. And on behalf of the people of Louisiana, I certainly want to wish her well and Godspeed. I also want to welcome our two newest members of the court, Justice Jay McCollum and Justice Piper Griffin. There's never been a more challenging time to be a public servant than right now. And I want to thank you all, everybody here who's a public servant, for offering themselves for service. And thank you for your willingness to step forward on behalf of the people of Louisiana. It is greatly appreciated, and I'm confident that Justice McCallum, Justice Griffin, you're going to serve very well, with wisdom and with compassion. It is my honor to be here in this court today. While few in the public are really aware of all the contributions that are made by the justices of the Supreme Court and all the work that they do by them and by their staff, everybody here certainly knows how critically important the functioning of this court is to the people of Louisiana. And I think after yesterday, it is more important than ever that we understand how important it is to have an orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And that is one of the things that's being done here today. And so I thank all of you for coming out to be part of this historic occasion. You know, this is a grand and historic building, and every time, not just that I'm in it, I drive by this building, I am awestruck. It is absolutely beautiful. And this courtroom is ornate, it's majestic, and it inspires confidence in us. But the court isn't this building and it isn't this room, it's the justices who serve. And I am confident that we couldn't have a better Chief Justice than John Weimer. He and all the justices understand that Lady Justice is blindfolded and the scales are balanced for a reason. Because nobody who's a party to any action before this court should be disadvantaged by anything other than the facts and the law. Not who they are, not what they look like, not where they come from, not the money that they have or their stature in society. John Weimer is well deserving of this position. In his invitation to me to speak today, he asked me not to eulogize him. I am not going to do that. I did want to apologize, however, because Donna was invited to be here today, and she asked me to apologize for everyone for her absence. But she very much treasures friendship that we have with the Chief Justice as well. I do want to acknowledge that John Weimer is becoming chief at a historic time. And it's a very difficult time. You can just look around this room. It's not filled to capacity, not because he doesn't have enough family, as Dan reminded us, not because there aren't enough people interested in this ceremony. It happens to be because we're in the midst of a global pandemic. And so these are very difficult times. They're historic times. I know that the Chief Justice hails from up the bayou. I'm certain that the good people of Lafourche Parish would have been here en masse had they been able to attend as their native son ascends to this position. And I can confirm to the Chief Justice that you are going to be the biggest thing in Thibodaux until a Heisman Trophy is awarded to one of your young people.
Well, they just put in a roundabout, Governor, and I think that's the most exciting thing that's happened there in a long time.
I understand. We are in the ravages of a pandemic, and the truth is, it's worse now here and around the country than it has been at any point up to now. This is a critical time in our response. We meet here today to celebrate this tradition, but to celebrate it differently, as so many other events have been celebrated differently over the last 10 months. And I know that while this ceremony may look different than what he had hoped for, I will tell you that it's being done in the right way and that John Weimer is the right person to lead this court in these challenging times. I have no doubt that he will serve honorably, upholding the law of the land, and he understands that Lady Justice is blindfolded. I also pray that you'll never lose the sense of wonder that you feel upon walking into this courtroom because of its grandeur. And it is a reminder, I think, of the grand responsibility that you and all of the justices have. Unfortunately, and as the Chief Justice is aware, I won't be able to stay for the full ceremony. I do have a conference call with President-elect Biden's COVID response team, and they're looking for some specific information relative to various states right now. And so I'm going to be excusing myself shortly. And so I wanted to apologize to that. But I did want to thank once again the Chief Justice, the Associate Justices for the opportunity to speak here today. I look forward to working with you all for the remainder of my time as governor of this great state. And the state of Louisiana is a great state. I'm inspired by the people of our state, the goodness, the decency of our people. And they deserve to be well and ably served by folks such as those before you today on this court. So I thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I will be praying for each and every one of you, and I would ask that you pray for me and for our country and for our state, so that together we will get through this pandemic, we will get back to a sense of normalcy, and we will do it sooner than later and with the least loss of life possible. So thank you all very much, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor. Governor mentioned this historic building. I think everyone knows where the state capitol is. Everyone knows that the governor has an office in the state capitol, but also does a lot of work out of the governor's mansion. We know that. But not everybody knows where this building is, and it's in the 400 block of Royal Street, in the heart of the French Quarter in New Orleans. So while the legislative and executive branches are housed in Baton Rouge, the judicial branch is housed here in New Orleans. The 80th president of the Louisiana Bar Association is coming in just a second. But first, one of Justice Weimer's constituents is the Attorney General of the state of Louisiana. And they are actually constituents of each other. Jeff Landry is originally from St. Martinville, right in the heart of Acadiana, a former member of the United States Congress, and as Governor Edwards, this time last year, was sworn in to his second term as the Chief Legal Officer of the state of Louisiana. Let us welcome Jeff Landry, our Attorney General.
Chief Justice and Justices, as it may please the court, I would like to, for the record, mention that I have the instructions from the Chief as well for my remarks, and gave us some great rules. Certainly, you are blessed to have your family with you this morning, and certainly always I'd like to remind Chief Justice Burnett Johnson of what a pleasure it was to have her some 5 years ago swearing us in. And what an honor, Justice Weimer, Chief, to give me an opportunity to speak on this historical occasion. You know, every generation of Louisianians from the beginning has had to answer for itself the question, how should we live? Our answers in war and in peace, famine and prosperity, in plagues or good health, in good times and bad times, in small things and in great things, through the whole range of human affairs, are the essential threads of a much larger story. We are all told and desire peace and prosperity. And that to get there, we must find common ground upon which to build a better society. Our nation was founded as a republic made up of two constitutional systems, a federal and a state. This constitutional system mandates that governments be split into three branches. The tension between these branches is required. It is in the friction that it creates that is supposed to keep them together. Just as tension cables on great bridges bear the weight of the structure, making them sound and sturdy. And while the other two branches pull strongly one way or the other, the courts must instead pull towards the center, towards the Constitution. Our nation's courts serve as the arbiters for the public, whether between private litigants or a citizen and his government. They serve the unique role of an unbiased adjudicator in a broad range of circumstances. However, regardless of the circumstances, our judges and justices are called to apply the law fairly. To quote Justice Amy Coney Barrett, I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and our laws as they are written. This holds true for the highest court in a nation and for the highest court in our state. When judges impose their beliefs instead of upholding the law, which the citizenry better understands than we think, it is only a matter of time before the citizenry shows the same disrespect for law and order. If there is a common thread that is supposed to bind the government to its citizens, it is the law. Both our state and federal constitutions spell out the fundamental rights that are granted to us by God, not by governments. The danger, the true destruction, is when those elected to enforce and uphold the law use that power to bend the governed to their will, breaking the law and usurping the Constitution, thereby depriving all of liberty. In Louisiana, this duty falls on these 7 justices, charged with balancing the whole of Louisiana. Make no mistake, this is a balancing act, not a deadlift. But with one wrong move, it becomes a deadlift. A justice's wisdom is crucial in balancing the immense body of law, and it's most effective when guided by an experienced, dedicated chief. This is no easy feat, especially at the highest level of scrutiny. Litigants appearing before this court rarely bring an issue with a simple answer, but all deserve the full benefit of the court's discernment. As noted by the famous Supreme Court Justice Harlan, our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law. However, equal does not mean extra. A chief's work is not just in keeping justice for all, but in the upkeep of the justice system for all. Service to the people is the entire purpose here. What may seem to some as pomp and circumstances is inherently sacred and fundamental. As the governor said, what a beautiful building we have. It lays the foundation for the people's defense against tyranny and injury. And we all know well the famous quote by John Adams that we must be a nation of laws and not of men. But lesser known is his warning on the same topic. There is a danger from all men, he says. The only maximum of a free government ought to be to trust no man living with the power to endanger the public liberty. That skepticism is another force, another tension acting on our government. It is a force of the people and a right to question those in power. And it is in this court that it is called to find justice. The search for justice is not a lonesome endeavor. It demands the work of many, but is led by one. As the new Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court, Justice John Weimer takes that lead. And I am confident that he will serve our state honorably, and our court is in good hands. Thank you, and God bless Louisiana.
Thank you, Attorney General Jeff Landry. I also want to point out another person who is in attendance with us. The Governor's Executive Council is with us, a young man from Thibodaux named Matt Block. And Matt stood alongside the Justice on what the Justice described as his most significant accomplishment in his life, the day that he married Penny in convent in St. James Parish. Matt served as an altar boy at their wedding. Matt, our best to your dad, Gerald, your Uncle Harold, and your whole family. And thank you for the wonderful job you're doing for our state and for our government. Elena, you're in the queue now. We're going to welcome the 80th president of the Louisiana Bar Association, Elena Meir. She's an attorney in the city of Alexandria. She received her BA and JD from LSU. She has held virtually every position in the Bar Association before becoming LSBA president, including serving as the Young Lawyers Section chair. She has also served as an officer of the Central Louisiana Pro Bono Project, which aids indigent citizens, and as chair of the United Way of Central Louisiana. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of the Louisiana State Bar Association, Elena Meir.
Thank you. Chief Justice, Associate Justices, may it please the court. So I, like the governor and the attorney general, received some guidelines, or shall I say criteria, before I was able to speak here today. But as the oldest of my parents' 3 daughters, I will say that I feel like I've always done the right thing. I've tried to do my best. I've tried to follow those guidelines, and so we'll see what happens. I'll do my best. So for people that know me, I usually have my phone on me at all times. But if I don't have my cell phone on me, then it's just somewhere. So one day I finally decided to check it, and then I noticed I had a missed call, a voicemail, and a text message from Justice Weimer. Inside, my heart ached. I was like, uh-oh, what did I do? I didn't do anything. We had a lovely conversation and discussed his plans for his investiture. And he invited me here today to speak on behalf of the Louisiana State Bar Association. And so thank you for that. So as we were having our conversation, I started thinking about the times when I was able to meet a Chief Justice. And so prior to Chief Justice Weimer, that would be twice. The first time was when I met Chief Justice Pascal Calagero. In October 2004, I believe it was at the New Orleans Civic Center at the time when I was sworn in, and I took my oath as an attorney. And so Chief Justice Calagero, at the end, he spoke to a lot of us that wanted to hang around and just kind of talk to him. He was very nice and kind. And at that time, that was my first time meeting a justice. And he was so kind, and I was very surprised by that. Because we always think of the justices as someone who are on this pedestal and who just, They do, at times, we think, just interpret the laws, and then we're not sure about what we're asking, what we're doing, if we're doing the right thing, or if it's okay for us to seek their guidance. But they're human, just like all of us. And so that day, Justice Caligaro took a picture with me, and I was wearing this suit jacket. I was also wearing the skirt, but I did not try to put that on today because that was 2004, and we're here to talk about a joyous occasion and things that bring us joy. So we're not even going to mention that. And so the next Chief Justice that I was able to meet was Chief Justice Burnett Johnson. And then a few years later, I was able to work with her. Chief Justice Johnson opened up this very courtroom to me so I could be sworn in as the 80th bar president. I will always thank her for that, and I will always remember that. And I appreciate her and her service. And so now we're here to celebrate Chief Justice Weimer. Although I kind of was told I'm not supposed to say that, but we'll see. So also during our conversation, we discussed access to justice. And Justice Weimer wants us to continue that work that we're doing to ensure that all citizens have access to the courts. That way they can have access to justice and whatever that justice looks like for them. Because at the time, we don't know what it looks like, but they have to have access to the courts in order to do that. And that is what he is working on along with his associate justices. And the Louisiana State Bar Association is helping him with that. And so we have, of course, the LSBA's Access to Justice Department, but along with that, we have our Access to Justice Commission, which the Supreme Court plays a very integral role in, and always has a member that sits at our side that co-chairs that commission, which is very powerful. Because we have many stakeholders that sit in that commission, and when you see the court there with you, alongside you, fighting for the citizens of Louisiana, that's an impact that you have no idea what that looks like to people that are in legal services, that are working day in and day out. We also have the Louisiana Bar Foundation, who plays an integral role in our access to justice in everything that we do, and who Justice Weimer also supports, and that supports the court. And so through that Bar Foundation, they're normally the highest funder of civil legal aid in the state of Louisiana. That's so very important and very powerful, because without the work of our legal aid organizations, there would be so many people who would not have access to the courts and access to the justice that they seek. And so I would also like to say, since I have in front of me here today, I have members of the executive branch of government and the legislature. And so I thank you for also funding and believing in civil legal aid. Without that, we couldn't do the things that we do to assist our citizens of Louisiana, especially right now during this pandemic, which is so important. And although I was able to work with Justice Johnson going throughout the end of her tenure, of course, she had to deal with the pandemic. And now Justice Weimer at the beginning of his tenure as Chief Justice, and on my way out as bar president, and we're still dealing with the pandemic. And so there are different issues that are arising for each justice, but I know that Justice Weimer is going to handle that very well. So I drove in last night from Alexandria, because that's about a 3-hour drive, and I didn't want to do it this morning because you never know about that Baton Rouge traffic. It's kind of tricky, and I didn't want to be late. So I was supposed to be getting my things together, but I received a text from a friend that said, "Had you seen the news?" And I was like, "No, why?" I turn it on, and I see some things that I never thought that I would see. Some things that upset me, that did not bring me joy. But then I started to think, and I thought about it, and I was like, we're going here today to celebrate the investiture of Chief Justice Weimer. Who's going to be there? I thought about it. And as the Attorney General mentioned, those 3 branches of government, they're here represented today. The executive, the legislative, and the judicial. It's not often that you always see them in the same room. You do see it in a civics book. You see a nice little diagram of kind of how it works, but you never really see it function in real life. And the reason that we're all here today and that everyone is here represented is because of Chief Justice Weimer and his respect for the rule of law. And that is what he is going to keep instilling in everyone, that understanding of the rule of law and how important it is. As lawyers, part of our oath was to uphold the laws of the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of Louisiana. And that is what we are doing here today. We are upholding those laws, those very important laws. And so Justice Weimer also has instilled the mission of the Louisiana State Bar Association. At its very core, it's serving the public and serving the profession. Whether that's through his tenure at Nichols, whether it's through serving in the lower courts or serving as a Thibodeau Fire Department, he served the public. He thinks about the public with everything that he does and every decision that he makes. And he also serves the profession. As the Louisiana State Bar Association president, we work very closely with the court. I've heard my predecessors say that there are others around in their different jurisdictions that don't have a working relationship with their court. And I found that very odd. And so when I took office, I haven't been able to really get out and meet most of my colleagues in the different states because of the pandemic. But I will say there are a few that are shocked by that, which kind of surprises me because we're very fortunate that our court recognizes that at the end of the day, we're all lawyers and we're all here to serve the public. And that is what they're doing here today through their public service. We have a wonderful relationship with them, and I look forward to continuing that, and I know that I will because we've had that discussion. And so with that, although I'm not supposed to say that he is the best person suited for the job right now, that the position of the Chief Justice is a lot of things I had no idea until, working with Chief Justice Johnson, all the different administrative functions that go with that as well. I'm not going to say that he's going to be very well suited for that he also may streamline some processes. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that I look forward to it. I know he's going to do an amazing job. I'm not going to say any of that. But what I will say is, I am honored to be here today. It is my privilege that I get to work with you, and I wish you and your family well. Thank you.
Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Elena Meir. No notes, no teleprompter. That was outstanding. That was outstanding. Elena mentioned that we have representatives of all the branches of government here, and that is rare. We have the president of the Louisiana State Senate. He is from Lafayette Parish, elected on behalf of the 38 other members of the Senate. He is an outstanding leader in his parish, in his district, and in the Senate. Let's welcome the president of the Louisiana State Senate, Paige Cortez, Lafayette Parish.
Thank you, Dan. Chief Justice and Associate Justices, may it please the court, I too, first of all, would like to thank you for allowing me to be here personally to witness this occasion in which you, Justice Weimer, will take your place in history with Louisiana's judicial branch. I also want to thank the other members of the court, as well as all of the members who are elected and serve in the judicial branch for their service to our great state. Before I get started in my points, I want you to know that as a former teacher of civics and American history, and I know you and I share the love of history, it was not missed by me that you can learn something. And I had no idea that Matthew Block was an altar boy. So you learn something at every occasion.
I think he prefers to say altar server.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't missed by me either that you have Chairman Zarang from your back home district, who just happens to be the chairman of appropriations from the House side, House Appropriations Committee. And so I'm going to give you a bit of background that Justice Weimer and I met when I was first a member of the House Appropriations Committee years ago. And as an associate justice, he would make his way to the legislature to meet with individual legislators on the Appropriations Committee for the purpose of talking about funding for the judicial branch. And so we got to know each other a little bit, and we had some similarities. But subsequent to that, as I moved over to the Senate, and many of you are aware of this, he can be seen annually in the spring donning the Senate basketball uniform in the annual House Senate basketball. What a swingman for the Senate, and he has brought us a few trophies along the way. So thank you for that, and the charity that it helped, the charities that it helps. But you know, we soon learned as we met each other that he had friends from Lafayette area, and I told him that my father grew up in Lafourche Parish. Turns out both he and my father are graduates from Thibodeau High. Although not classmates, they did graduate from the same school. I think my father's school was changed. You probably were from the newer school. My father was the old school. But we created a little bit of a kinship and friendship with the love for civics, and that has grown. And so I thank you for that, Justice Weimer. But today, we're gathered to mark the beginning of your tenure as the 26th Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court. And I want you to know that I did my research on that, and after a few hours found out that it was right there on your website. And so I could have just cut to the quick and done that. I want to thank your staff and the communication that I received, much like the Attorney General and the Governor. We all received the communication. It was not missed by me that keep your comments brief was in all caps. And so I will not be here long, but thank you for that. It was with wisdom and foresight that the drafters of our state constitution decided that the leadership of the Supreme Court transfer to the justice who is senior in the point of service on the court, thereby ensuring the efficient and effective continuity of the work of the court. And I commend those drafters. It removes a lot of what we have to go through in the legislature with regards to presiding officers and the politics that sometimes plays into that. It's important for the functioning of our democracy that these three distinct branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch, work in concert for the citizens of our state so that we can provide a government that works through issues and serves the people. And there have been a number of people who have alluded to that, and that's extremely important for me. I know that I try every day to have a good working relationship with the Speaker of the House, with the administration, and with the executive branch agency heads. Your branch of state government, in particular your court, has the important role of interpreting our state laws and our state constitution. It's one of the pillars of the division of power between the branches and how your branch provides the necessary checks and balances on the powers of the other branches. Now, sometimes, as it has been known to happen, the legislature and the executive branch don't agree on the constitutionality of a law or a statute. And we thank you, the judicial branch, for being that grand referee in those disputes. The role is paramount to allowing the other two branches to get back to their work and keep the state moving forward. As for the legislature, this past year has presented numerous challenges. They've required innovative approaches, literally just to conduct the basic constitutionally required functions of the legislature. Of course, in addition to that, our constituents bring to us policy issues that we have to debate as a deliberative body and move those matters forward. Many of these challenges continued. I'm sure you and your court and your associate justices are continuing to navigate through the same challenges that we've had. The impartial administration of justice by the Louisiana Supreme Court is instrumental to our state progressing forward, and strong leadership will continue to be necessary for the court to meet its challenges and accomplish its goals and objectives. As we begin 2021, I'm optimistic that we will soon put this pandemic in the rearview mirror and get back to more normal lives. With that, I'm also pretty sure that the Nichols State University family is quite proud today that one of their own is the Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court. I look forward to working with you as the leader of our state's judicial branch, as well as to the associate justices and all of the members of the judicial branch as a member and the presiding officer of the Senate, as a member of the legislature, to move our great state forward. Congratulations to you and best wishes to you and your family on your new position. And thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, President of the Senate, Paige Cortez. We also had Senator Jimmy Harris here with us as well, who represents portions of Orleans Parish in the Senate, including the French Quarter, and we thank him for his service in the state Senate and for being the representative of the section of the French Quarter where we're having this investiture. Of course, there's another house of the legislature with 105 members. The Speaker of that House is Clay Schexnayder of Ascension Parish, but the Speaker pro tem is Tanner McGee, an attorney from Terrebonne Parish. Speaker pro tem helps to herd all those cats, 105 of them, and does a lot of work to keep the business of the House moving and moving well. Let's welcome the Speaker pro tem of the Louisiana House of Representatives from Terrebonne Parish, Tanner McGee.
Thank you. Thank you, members. And thank you, Justice, and thank you, Chief Justice, for allowing me to speak today. I, like every other speaker, was also made to promise that I would not eulogize the Chief Justice in his words. He must have been particularly concerned about me because he called me 3 times to make sure I knew that. He received me a text message, an email, a staff email to make sure that I would not eulogize him. And I promised him that I would not eulogize him. I had actually written other remarks for today, and like probably many of you, we witnessed concerning events yesterday via television or social media. And so this morning I woke up and I threw it all away and wrote an entirely different speech because it occurred to me that we are entering the most difficult time in our history in this state for this court since probably Reconstruction. And I say that because it's clear to me now that our very institutions are under attack. How does this court do its duty when the very notion of a fact, is under attack? The rise of social media has politicized the court system. The public looks to the court as an arbiter of politics, not justice and law. Both sides now see the court as a super legislature, or even worse, as a means of publicity. People and politicians use the court not to resolve honest disputes between branches of government, but as a currency to boost their own political fortunes. We saw the seeds of this ambitious flower bouquet turn into a bouquet of dead flowers yesterday. So the mission you've chosen to accept is maintaining the integrity of this court, to restoring the public's faith in nonpartisan justice. Now, I see Bishop Fobb in the audience, and he is my bishop as well. And it's confession time. I lied. I never had any intention of not saying anything nice about Justice Weimer. It is Justice Weimer's fault for trusting a politician. Because Justice Weimer is the best man for this moment in time. I'm confident your humility, your pragmatism, and most importantly, your courage will steer this ship through the troubled waters to safer harbors, which is the best compliment I could give any incoming Chief Justice. With that, I thank you for the opportunity and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Speaker Pro Tem Tanner McGee. We also have with us today Representative Royce Duplessis. He's an attorney. He represents part of Orleans Parish in the House, including the French Quarter. So we're in his district. And we have, as the Pro Tem mentioned, Appropriations Chair Jerome Z. Zarang, who serves Terrebonne Parish in the legislature. And what is not known by many, but is known by the Justice and myself, is that Z almost became a member of our family, for he dated for some time Kati Kearns, who is yet another first cousin of the Justice and myself.
But he married my son-in-law's cousin.
But he married his son-in-law's cousin. Right. Thank you, Mr. Justice. I appreciate that correction, sir. Stand corrected.
I don't want him to get him in trouble back home.
You all heard the You all heard the admonitions that have been given to those who are speaking about the justice. And rather than talking about himself, he wanted us to talk about the orderly transition of authority in a democracy. And he wrote that before yesterday. So I will tell a story instead of someone who introduced him at one time. Rather than my praising him, I shall use the words of Judge Brady Fitzsimmons so that I cannot be held in contempt. Justice Fitzsimmons once introduced John by saying, quote, "Renaissance man is too often used to describe someone who is multifaceted, but I introduce someone who has earned this description. He began working in the 7th grade at his father's service station. As a kid, he raced motorcycles. He left home the day he turned 18 and lived in trailers, not nice enough to be called caravans or mobile homes, often without air conditioning, until he could design and help build his own home with the assistance of a very beautiful and skilled young lady that he ended up marrying. He worked his way through Nichols State University and the LSU Law School, sometimes in the legislature for the late Senator Harvey Peltier, then state representative at the time, Billy Tauzin, but he often worked also on the boats that ply the rivers and the bayous and the Gulf of Mexico, as a roughneck, as a deckhand, a roustabout, often 30 days at a time. He was a small-town general practice attorney in his native Thibodaux, and then became a part-time and full-time teacher and a part-time attorney and mediator. He won awards for his competence as a teacher of law and of ethics at Nichols. Over 3,000 students that he taught and his families would later make him a formidable candidate in South Louisiana. The judge goes on. John is an award-winning painter whose works have raised many thousands of dollars for charities, schools, volunteer firemen, clubs, organizations, and churches. He fishes out of a kayak, still rides motorcycles, even riding alone all the way to Sturgis, South Dakota. Plays basketball once a week. Coached girls' basketball and softball teams to championships, no less. He married Penny, a beautiful girl from the river parishes, and they have 3 lovely, very accomplished daughters. And I have to brag on them a minute because they are my cousins, okay? My cousin Jacqueline, married to Eric Sanchez, is an attorney. You heard her momentarily ago, just a few minutes ago. Cousin Catherine, married to Jacob Daig, is a physician's assistant. Cousin Emily, who dates Hogan Bourgeois, has a master's degree and works in higher education. All 3 of them paid their ways through their college educations, 2 assisted by academic scholarships and 1 with an athletic scholarship. John is a dedicated father and devoted husband and now grandfather. I have a 3rd cousin. His name is Paul, and he is Jacqueline and Eric's son, and Catherine and Jacob are expecting the 2nd grandchild very soon. Judge Fitzsimmons went on to say the Supreme Court appointed John to serve as a district judge pro tem during the time he was a teacher. And within a 6-year span, he went from being a full-time teacher and a part-time attorney to being elected to an unexpired term on the district court bench in Lafourche Parish, re-elected without opposition, to being elected to the First Circuit Court of Appeal, to being elected to the Louisiana Supreme Court. All of that in a 6-year period. He was involved in 6 primary elections and elected to serve a total of 16 different parishes, 1/4 of the parishes in our state. And Judge Fitzsimmons concluded, he is truly a Renaissance man. And someone in the back of the room hollered, "I don't know about Renaissance man. He sounds like a boy who can't keep a job to me." That was then. This is now. And he has served on the Louisiana Supreme Court with distinction for the last 19 years. I would now like to ask Thibodaux attorney Danny Cavell, who was student body vice president rather, and then succeeded the justice as student body president at Nichols. He and the justice graduated from the LSU Law School and studied for the bar exam together and began their careers as attorneys in Thibodaux. Danny Cavell initially clerked for Judge Rémy Chasson and rented a house from my mother after the justice introduced Danny to the judge and to my mom. Can't get away from the family bush. After all that transpired, by the way, the justice married Danny's much younger sister-in-law. Danny Cavell will now administer the oath to the new Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court, after which we will hear from the justice.
Before taking this oath, John, I want to say thank you very much. I've had the privilege of swearing you in first as a district court judge that you sent me the picture back in the 1996, and now to complete your journey through the judicial robes to Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Thank you for that privilege and honor.
Thank you, brother.
Would you please repeat after me? I, John L. Weimer,
I, John L. Weimer,
do solemnly swear that I will support
that I solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Louisiana,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Louisiana,
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all duties incumbent upon me as Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court, according to the best of my ability and understanding. So help me God. Congratulations, John. Denny.
John, we'll introduce you like we would in Tiger Stadium or at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. Ladies and gentlemen, the new Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court from Thibodaux, Louisiana. Let's welcome John L. Weimer. Please just sit here. Thank you. Upon taking the oath of office, I feel a profound sense of humility and a recognition of the obligation to be of service. Apparently, my brothers in the fire department have heard the news. Don't be alarmed. For the benefit of the audience, some fire truck sirens just began to wail. I want to thank the participants, Bishop Fobb, for your spiritual and thoughtful eloquence. You have been an inspiration to me. Governor Edwards, Attorney General Landry, it is good to have two attorneys in the courtroom without their briefs. And of course, I am referring to legal briefs and not articles of attire. Sheriff Gregg and Sheriff Trigg and Sheriff Pullman, thank you for being here. Brother Fireman Riviere, brother-in-law Danny Cavell, Chef Jeremy, fellow public servants from the legislature, Madam President, and cousin MC Deacon Dan Bourne, and my former student who taught me much, Reverend Dr. Charles Otis, will share the benediction. I begin with a quick story. Following the terrible and tragic
times immediately after Hurricane Katrina. Displaced people of New Orleans were being evacuated by the busload and without notice, literally dropped off at Nichols State University, located in Thibodaux. As many as 12,000 people would spend at least some time on the campus. Nichols and Thibodaux and the surrounding communities immediately and without hesitation opened their hearts, opened their doors, opened their clothes closets, and opened their freezers, which of course were without electricity, and housed and clothed and fed their new neighbors courtillons and sauce piquants and étouffées and jambalayas and fricassees and gumbos, all containing all manner of God's creatures from the bountiful marshes, swamps, bayous, and estuaries of South Louisiana. Daily, food began arriving from as far away as Edgard and Vacherie, Pierrepart and Cocodrie, Amelia and Bouty, and South and Central Lafourche. Church congregations of every denomination responded with prayers and services. When the Red Cross finally arrived weeks later and served the first meals, everyone hoped they'd learn to cook better. I have never been so proud of my alma mater, my hometown, and the areas I have served as a judge for the way they responded to those in need who were taken from the city and brought to the country with little more than the clothes on their backs. Those efforts have been an inspiration to me to be of service. Also there, day and night, were my innovative, creative, can-do brothers and sisters of the Thibodaux Volunteer Fire Department, reputed to be the world's largest all-volunteer fire department, to serve their new neighbors. Now, I discovered that citizens from two parishes I served, St. Bernard, Sheriff Pullman, and Plaquemines, were being rescued from their rooftops or wherever they could be found and taken to the levee in Algiers across the Mississippi River from this courthouse to be further evacuated. A group of fellow volunteer firemen and other good citizens, including my brother-in-law, Danny Cavell, were able to put together some food and water, and we went to Algiers to be of service. And we were stopped at a roadblock manned by some very young and very well-armed National Guardsmen. And I showed them my credentials as an Associate Justice to gain entrance and complete our mission. And I could tell they were perplexed when I handed them my ID. And so I explained, I am Justice John Weimer. And one guardsman looked up and said, Justin who? And I explained, I'm not Justin. I'm a justice, a judge on the Louisiana Supreme Court. And these guardsmen went immediately from perplexed to baffled. Then one of them pointed at a Thibodaux volunteer fireman's T-shirt I was wearing and said, hey, bro, are you a fireman? Come on in. I don't know nothing about these IDs, but if you're a fireman, you can come through. I can tell them now that not only am I a fireman, but I'm also the chief, without fibbing. And although in Thibodaux, my brother firemen have advised me not to refer to myself as chief because that'd be rather confusing, I can be chief all I want in New Orleans. The point of that story is that the title we hold as judges or public officials does not necessarily define us. In some instances, it is meaningless. It is the dedication, diligence, and hard work that define our role. Respect must be earned. I have served with 3 Chief Justices who made their mark on the judiciary in special ways. Pascal Calogero, the longest-serving justice for whom this building is named. Catherine Kitty Kimball, the first female Chief Justice, and Burnett Joshua Johnson, the first African-American Chief Justice. Now, I will be the first to recognize that I am not special like the chiefs who preceded me, but to demonstrate the constant ebb and flow of life. All three former Chief Justices are directly responsible for me being here today, because all three voted to allow me to serve as an appointed district judge 27 years ago. I have learned much from each, and while I will not match their historic firsts that they achieved, I promise to work hard and be dedicated to the principles of impartiality, independence, and fairness while pursuing justice and acting with integrity, just as did my predecessors. I'm joined by my colleagues, whom I will introduce by way of seniority and hometown, as opposed from left to right or right to left, because as the justices face the audience, their left is your right and your right is their left. And aren't right and left a matter of perspective? If you are reflective, and I know many of you are, perhaps you can possibly ascertain some symbolism. Note that I'll now sit in the middle from everyone's perspective, a place where I'm very comfortable. Justice Jeff Hughes of Walker and Justice Scott Creighton of Webster Parish are with us today virtually. Justice James Genovese of Opelousas, Justice Will Crane of Madisonville, Justice Jay McCallum of Farmerville, and Justice Piper Griffin of New Orleans. Thus, the Supreme Court begins with one new justice, two brand new justices, and a new chief. I look forward to us learning together. I must recognize my family, and I beg your indulgence. My wife, Penny, who was kind enough to marry me and is responsible for raising our three daughters, Jacqueline and Catherine and Emily, who, thank God, Bishop, not only inherited their mother's beauty, but her brains also. My prayer for everyone is that their family be as much of a blessing to them as my family has been to me. These four women in my life have made me a better person because they are individually and collectively such good people. They are remarkably self-sufficient, self-reliant, and they can take care of themselves. My two son-in-laws, Jacob Daig, who is married to Catherine, Eric Sanchez, who is married to my daughter, Jacqueline, and Hogan Bourgeois, who is Emily's boyfriend. I also recognize my brother, Mike, my unfortunately last surviving sibling, and my cousin, Mark, and Penny's brothers and sisters, and their spouses, who have been like brothers and sisters to me, Brother Cavell. I must also introduce my immediate work family, Stephanie Garrison, Gail Wise, Raul Esquivel, Gaynell Guillot, Kelly Barbier, and Nicole Bell. They are bright, dedicated, competent public servants who are fiscally frugal. I was named for my father and my grandfather, men of immensely modest means. My grandfather was a produce man at a grocery store who probably never made over minimum wage. These occasionally impecunious men left me something more valuable than riches. They left me a good name. My father was called upon to raise 5 children ranging in age from 9 to 3 on his own when his wife, his children's mother, tragically passed away. Thankfully, family members, teachers, and members of the Thibodeau community looked out for us. My father was a World War II veteran, an automobile mechanic, an entrepreneur who owned and operated a service station from which he eventually sold motorcycles. My mother had to quit school in the 7th grade to help raise her younger siblings and ended up with a GED at 29 while expecting her first child. After my mother's death, my father moved his service station to a location closer to the modest 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplex where the 7 of us had lived. You really get to know your family well in such an environment. All too well. My father worked hard, was impeccably honest, a competent mechanic, and treated everyone fairly and only charged for services actually rendered. I grew up working in that service station. I learned invaluable life lessons working in that service station that have served and guided me throughout my various career paths. I learned the value of hard work, the virtue of honesty, and how vitally important it is to treat everyone, regardless of their station in life, with dignity and respect. I also learned how very gratifying it is to be of service to others. At that time, I also met a then young attorney who was always well-dressed and always smiling, who had his vehicle serviced at my father's station. I listened to his conversations with my father and was always too bashful to even contribute so much as a syllable. When I took the oath to serve on our state's highest court 19 years ago, that young attorney, by then appellate court judge Randolph Payro of Thibodaux, told a story, and I'd hoped to have him here today. He could not join us in person, so I will tell his story in his absence. He said he went to pick up his vehicle, which was being serviced at Weimer's auto service, and he relayed this tall, skinny, long-haired, filthy, grimy, greasy kid crawled out from underneath my car. He told me about the services he rendered and then bashfully asked, how does one go about becoming an attorney? And Randy Payro said, I looked at this guy and said to myself, he's got to be kidding. Here's a guy who will need an attorney. He is never, ever going to be an attorney. And that was painful to hear. It's equally painful to report. Randy recounted now, a decade later, that he and Gerald Block, Matthew's father, mentioned earlier, hired me to work in their hometown law firm, and how roughly a decade after that, Randy recommended me to Justice Harriet Lemon, then on the Louisiana Supreme Court, who eventually I would not replace but succeed on the court, that I, a full-time faculty member at Nichols teaching law and ethics, be appointed to serve as a district judge when Randy was elected to the Court of Appeal. But for that appointment, I would have never considered becoming a judge. I assure you I did not relate these matters to talk about myself. I share these matters because throughout my native Lafourche parish, this ceremony is being shared with fellow public school students to teach civics, speech, and mass communications. I pray this ceremony is educational. I use these matters to point out that in this wonderful country in which we live, in this great state we call home, although neither are perfect, they provide hope where, regardless of one's background, hard work and dedication, perseverance, tenacity, time on task, and respect for others will enable one to succeed if one is willing to be of service to others. We must work together to ensure that opportunity is equally available to all, and all can hope to achieve their goals. Today, we live in challenging and inflective times of social distancing and social unrest. However, we are social beings who need one another. We face a worldwide pandemic, and challenging conflicts face our nation. And in Louisiana, we have also stared down countless hurricanes. Yet I am confident in the citizens of our nation and the citizens of Louisiana in particular, that they have the perseverance, tenacity, resilience, and respect for one another to overcome these challenges. Our great nation was founded on a principle of human rights. It is stated in the Declaration of Independence that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have come to learn as a father of 3 independent daughters that the reference to men is a reference to mankind. This principle sets a high moral standard to which we should all aspire. We must strive to ensure that these principles stated in the Declaration of Independence does apply to everyone equally, and that everyone assume personal responsibility to become good citizens. To sit in judgment is truly a formidable responsibility and a solemn duty. Judges are called upon to make decisions that would often defy the wisdom of the biblical king, Solomon. Daily, judges decide the fate of others while addressing issues related to life, liberty, and property because that is their sworn duty. Competing considerations must be weighed carefully and balanced on the scales of justice. Daily, and often many times in a day, judges are called upon to separate fact from fiction, truth from untruth. Judges are called upon to address issues related to those who perceive that they have been wronged or have been wronged, committed a wrong, or are accused of wrongful behavior, and after listening carefully and patiently, make it right based on the law. My belief is that judges do not declare winners or losers in litigation, but rather apply the law to the facts to reach a solution. When impartiality prevails, it is society that prevails because a disagreement has been resolved. Our system of justice must rely on others to enforce judicial decrees, but those decrees are only respected if the judiciary is worthy of that respect. As judges, we must conduct ourselves in a manner to be worthy of respect and remain independent, fair, unbiased for our system of justice to properly serve society. I firmly believe that a judge is a public servant who serves by being dedicated to the principles of justice, fairness, independence, and impartiality while applying the law as written by the legislature. A judge cannot be an advocate for one side or the other, but rather must be an advocate for justice under the law. An important function of our judiciary is to provide a forum for the resolution of disagreements where all who appear can be confident that there is a fair hearing and an impartial decision. Judges have a unique opportunity to educate the community about the law and our legal system. And I urge my colleagues on the bench to take advantage of opportunities to teach, especially to teach our young people about respect for the law, personal responsibility, and consequences of inappropriate behavior. Mr. President, you touched on that. We are both teachers. We love the profession, and we love the way that we have the opportunity to touch young people's lives and for them reciprocally to have them touch our lives. My first act as Chief Justice was to encourage judges to become active teachers in the community. In addition to the adjudicative function, the Supreme Court administers numerous programs, and I can speak at length about each, but out of respect for everyone's time, I will mention only a few briefly. Specialty courts, which include drug and treatment courts, DWI courts, veterans courts, family courts, and reentry courts, provide rehabilitation as opposed to incarceration and reduce recidivism while saving souls and our state money because it is less expensive to rehabilitate than it is to incarcerate. Mr. Attorney General, we have been in touch with one another to bolster these programs. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, and members of the legislature, I appreciate the work that y'all have done to help support these programs. Judges have envisioned, created, and presided over these courts with no additional pay because they want to serve by helping people become productive citizens. The court also administers the Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or COSAP program, which involves ordinary citizens serving as volunteers who have been specifically trained to assist those who are among the most vulnerable of society, abused and neglected children who through no fault of their own are involved in the legal system. These people are true children of God who serve the underprivileged, and I can't thank them enough for their efforts. Additionally, the Supreme Court administers the Families in Need of Services program, which aids families needing social services so as to prevent more significant issues. The court also maintains the Louisiana Protective Order Registry, which provides 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week access to court rulings so as to help protect those subjected to domestic violence, and the sheriffs in the audience know how important that is. Each of these programs have been supported by our colleagues in the legislature and in the executive branch, and the judiciary needs their continued financial investment in these programs so as to save the state funds in other areas of the budget and provide valuable service to our citizens. The Supreme Court has long enjoyed an excellent relationship with the Louisiana State Bar Association, which relationship, as indicated by the President, is envied in other parts of the country. The State Bar and local bar associations oversee countless hours of good works, including pro bono work in which volunteers attorneys assist those in need of legal services without compensation. Madam President, thank you for your exuberance. Thank you for the work that you do. I look forward to us continuing to work together. The Louisiana Bar Foundation, as the President indicated, provides substantial funds to many worthy organizations and aids the indigent in receiving legal services. My colleagues and I are immensely proud of the dedication of so many attorneys and judges who give back so very much of their time, talent, and treasure to the community and to the bench and the bar. I sincerely thank everyone who is here to share this occasion. There are many others who could not join us physically, but undoubtedly are here in spirit, and today virtually as well. A dear friend of mine who's a physician sent out a letter to some friends advising them that if they had any type of sleep deprivation issues to tune into this program and they would be cured. I pray that has not been the case. I also thank the many people who have played a significant role in my life and career, which has advanced by fate and circumstances far beyond my ability to comprehend. The list of people is endless, and to begin naming names would be an impossible task. So many have done so much. In that respect, I am truly blessed and extremely grateful. The sacrifices of so many on my behalf inspire me to serve diligently. I want to thank the previously mentioned copious number of family members and the many friends and classmates and former students who have been so supportive and who are randomly but strategically dispersed throughout the district I serve in the parishes of St. Bernard, Plaquemines, the West Bank of Jefferson, St. Charles, St. John, St. James, Lafourche, Terrebonne, Assumption, St. Mary, and St. Martin. According to Scripture, God offered Solomon anything he wished, and Solomon did not ask for riches, and he did not ask for a long life. Instead, Solomon requested from God the following: give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, and to distinguish right from wrong. In closing, I ask one favor. I ask for your prayers that my decisions and the decisions of my judicial colleagues will be just, wise, fair, and that we will have an understanding heart that we are good servants as we toil in the vineyards of justice. God bless our state, and God bless our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Justice. We'll have a benediction prayer now, and then we'll close it out briefly. Pastor Charles Otis of the New Mount Esther Baptist Church in Morgan City, a human resource manager for the Louisiana House of Representatives and former chaplain of services for the Carolina Panthers NFL football team. He and the justice had a teacher-pupil relationship, and he is one of the justice's favorite and most diligent former students. Teachers hope to touch the lives of their students. Charles has touched the life of his teacher. Pastor Otis.
If I can beg your indulgence for just a moment, I'll make a brief presentation to my lovely wife. And my lovely daughter. It's all yours.
Unlike the rest of you, I've been given the privilege to have as much time as I need. As we prepare for the closing prayer, and before I begin, if you're walking along a fence and spot a turtle sitting atop a fence post, know that it did not get there by itself. The Heavenly Father, our friend, saw the turtle and lifted it on top the fence post. Chief Justice Weimer, I thank you, sir, for allowing myself to be a part of this wonderful occasion to speak before the leaders of this state, the citizens of this state, and to offer prayer. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for your goodness and your favor. We thank you for what we've experienced during this investiture proceedings. We bless your name. May your anointing of strength, peace, protection, and justice be upon Chief Justice Weimer and the justices of the Louisiana Supreme Court. Be with them each day as they preside over this court. Sit with them in their libraries. Guard their hearts, guard their thoughts, guard their speech. Empower them with wisdom so that their deliberations are just to all that appear before this court. Keep them encouraged during moments of adversity. Let no deterrent formed against them prosper. Dear Lord, we bless your name. Lord, we thank you for their families. Keep them safe, covered, and shielded by your might and power. We bless your name. May the purpose and intent of this court be true to its founding. Empower it with love, mercy, counsel, and impartiality. Bless all that are here. Give each of us traveling grace as we depart. Lord, in your name, I believe and I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Mr. Chief Justice and your colleagues on the court, may you continue to serve long and serve well. The British had a saying during World War II, during times that were very challenging, and no doubt we are in challenging times. I leave it with you. It's brief. The Brits used to say, keep calm and carry on. This ceremony is concluded. Thank all of you for being a part of this historic day.
Court now stands adjourned. And if you could allow the family to exit first so that they can get downstairs, and then